Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Foreman. At least, on the Mondays and Thursdays, I'm your host. Thanks for checking in, guys. This podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Like I said, thanks for checking in on my final podcast of the week. We are winding down, getting to the end of these final seeding games. About to get into the postseason for the NBA. It's super exciting. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to watch a handful of the games so far. I've said it on basically every podcast so far, but I'm thoroughly impressed with the bubble, what they have done so far. I'm super happy all of the teams came to play, even though not necessarily all of them were always in contention to make the postseason. So I'm glad all the teams that did came to participate. Super pleased and thrilled with the results that we have gotten so far. So props to the teams and the NBA so far for what we have seen. Hopefully everybody has gotten a chance to watch some of these games. But like I said, we're winding down to the end of these seeding games, getting into the postseason. But this season is different. This is the season of change. We have different things implemented, like the 8 seeding games, and we have a play-in game, play-in possibly tournament kind of coming up this weekend. So I want to start the show by discussing that, giving you guys a preview of that play-in game. I also want to talk about the bubble MVP and the all-seeding game, bubble awards that they are going to be giving out. That the NBA announced are giving out awards for the play in the bubble. They're making all NBA teams and, giving out an MVP award. So I want to talk about those two things. Then I want to give you guys a preview, break down the first round of the playoffs for both the Western Conference as well as the Eastern Conference. So I want to talk about, both conferences in the first round. And then in my final segment, I want to talk about Damian Lillard, him in particular, how he is making a case. Okay, he's making a case, definitely, as of recently, for the second best point guard in the league today. Okay, not quite up there at number 1 quite yet. I'll maybe tell you who I got at number 1 in the final segment, but he's making a case to be, one of, if not the second best point guard in the league. I want to talk about that. But like I said, let's go ahead and start with the preview of the play-in game for that 8th seed in the Western Conference. Okay, not so intense on the other side of the conference, the other conference in the East. Okay, no play-in game. It was not competitive with Washington. The Magic are getting that 8th spot. So it's intense. The race for the 8th seed is even more intense, even crazier than I predicted it would have been before it all started. So, like I said, it has exceeded my expectations so far. Right now, the Blazers are in that 8th spot. The Grizzlies are right behind them in number 9. Suns are at 10. Spurs are at 11. All 4 teams, believe it or not, okay, not all 4 teams have the same, chance, but all 4 teams have a chance to make that postseason, okay? Blazers, Grizzlies, Suns, and Spurs, all four of them have a chance so far, which is really crazy, because they each have one game left to play. So the fact that the one game is the deciding factor is another proving point to how good that Western Conference is, how deep it is, how deep it goes, 1 through 8. All teams, you gotta fight your way to the postseason in that Western Conference. You know, those teams down there are doing it. Damian Lillard is putting those Trailblazers on his back, it seems like, very similar to what Devin Booker is doing with those Phoenix Suns. Both players playing phenomenally, insanely well. Okay, phenomenal play so far. We've seen from the two of them, Devin Booker and Damian Lillard, two of them the highlights of their team so far and the biggest reason for their, so much success so far. Lillard, the other night had against the Sixers, so it was a little bit ago, had 51 points and 7 assists. It was a close game, but, pulled away from a little bit of the banged up, but yes, pulled away from the Sixers. And then the following night, he backed it up, follows up a 50-point game with a 61-point game against the Dallas Mavericks. So has 50 points against the Sixers, 60 against the Dallas Mavericks in must-win games. Obviously, they're fighting for that 8th spot for the play-in tournament. So every game is a must-win situation for Portland. Similar to what we saw with the Pelicans, similar to what we saw, what we are seeing for the Suns and the Spurs right now. So, must win. Dame did not disappoint in those two matchups. And as far as Devin Booker goes, dude has been surprising the entire league with his consistent play and, with such high level. The level of play he has been playing at so far. Obviously him and the Phoenix Suns have the best record in the bubble, in the seeding games at least, the best seeding game record at 7-0. Their final game is tonight. Most of the final games are tonight, at least the ones we really care about for that 8th spot. Obviously we have some irrelevant ones in the higher seeds and stuff finishing out their schedules, but for these final teams, the games tonight really do matter. But either way, we have the Suns so far being 7-0. Just to name you some of the teams they have beaten, okay, because they have had somewhat of a rigorous, a tough schedule. They've beaten the Mavericks twice, the Clippers, the Heat, the Thunder, and the 76ers. So, like I said, Mavericks, Clippers, Heat, Thunder, and 76ers, all teams in playoff contention, all teams, in the postseason right now were established postseason teams, prior than the bubble. The Phoenix Suns, a team, like I said, no one saw coming, in particular in Devin Booker, they have been balling out, and like I said, Booker is most responsible for that. He is in the conversation for, quote, bubble MVP, which I'm gonna talk about in my next segment, so stick around, but Again, the teams he's played, Clippers, Mavericks, 76ers, Heat. Let's go and talk about some of his games so far against those teams. So against the Clippers, let me pull it out. Against the Clippers, 35 points. Devin Booker goes off for 35 points against arguably the best and deepest team, one of the best defending duos in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. The Suns beat them, and Booker drops 35 points, hits a game winner over Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Okay? Remember that. Next game, Miami Heat, 35 points. Then against the Oklahoma City Thunder, 35 points. Then against the 76ers, 35 points. Seeing a trend there, these are obviously must-win games. Their streak is on the line. Their postseason hopes are on the line. And he keeps matching his high-level play. He keeps dropping 35, 35, 35, 35. He's averaging over 30, 31 points per game in the bubble so far. So he's playing fantastic. No one saw this team coming, and no one gave the Suns, okay, especially me, I was wrong. No one gave the Suns a real shot at making that play-in game. The Grizzlies so far, I've talked about it before, have been disappointing, okay? They're proving that they have been overachieving, so far in the regular season. Up until this point, they really weren't that good a basketball team. They've just been playing, like I said, overachieving, playing very well, with the group of guys that they've had, that they have. But so far in these seeding games, they have had a tough schedule, I remind you, but they are 1-6 so far in the bubble, and they have dropped down into that 9th spot in the Western Conference, despite having over a 3-game lead over the 9th seed. When they were in that 8th seed, they had a 3.5 game lead, in that 8th spot. They couldn't hold on to it. They go 1-6. I'm predicting they go 1-7, lose to the Bucks despite Giannis. He's out with a head injury, or not injury. He's out with, after headbutting one of the Washington Wizards players. That was crazy, man. I can't believe Giannis did that. But either way, he did it. He's suspended. But I still think, even though Milwaukee is in their spot, I think they'll go out there and play well. Grizzlies haven't played too well. Haven't played too well so far in the bubble. Like I said, 1-6 so far. I think it's unlikely the Grizzlies make the playoffs, and I'm honestly thinking it's unlikely they make that play-in game. I'm really not seeing it for them. They haven't been playing well. Not clicking, not on a hot streak in comparison to the Suns and the Blazers. So I'm not feeling it for the Grizzlies. Like I said, I think they overachieved up until this point, kind of showing their true colors. It's a testament to Ja how good he was in the regular season. Teams obviously now know he's the focal point of that team. He hasn't shot the ball too well in the bubble so far, hasn't scored or played too well. So that has been the biggest reason for the Grizzlies and their struggles so far. Either way, they've been disappointing, and I'm not liking their chances to make the postseason or that play-in game. Their final game is tonight against the Bucks. Not necessarily liking their chances, but Giannis is sitting, so why not? Who can't? The Nets beat Milwaukee whenever Giannis sat the second half, so why couldn't the Grizzlies do it? So who knows? It could be anybody's game. I'm just not really feeling it anymore for that Grizzly team, especially because of what I have seen so far. Blazers are in that play-in game already. They have earned the right, being in that 8th spot now. They are officially in that 8th spot, as the play-in tournament goes. So they will be in the play-in tournament. So the Blazers have locked their spot in there. For the Suns to make it into the play-in game, the Suns need to win their game, and they need the Grizzlies to lose against the Bucks. The Spurs, because like I said earlier, the Spurs are also in contention despite being at that 11th spot. The 11th seed could very well still make that 8th spot in the West, again showing how deep that Western Conference really is. It's a fight every year for teams to make the postseason. It's not over, once you make that postseason. It's just as tough getting into the postseason as it is being in the postseason in that Western Conference, basically. But like I said, Spurs still grasping for air down there at the 11th spot. The Spurs, they need the Suns as well as the Grizzlies to lose. They need both teams to lose. Spurs have to win. When you're relying on two teams to win, it's a whole lot of ifs, ands, or buts. I'm not really feeling too confident in that decision, in that move, in that team. So, because of all of the other things that have to go the Spurs' way, I'm not feeling that confident in their ability to make that 9th spot, make that play-in game. So I am pretty much ruling out the Spurs. You don't want to rule them out altogether, but they need the Suns and the Grizzlies to lose, and they have to win. That's a whole lot of things to go right for them to get in. Maybe everything goes right, everything goes their way. They beat the Blazers in the play-in game twice, and Popovich and the Spurs continue on their long streak. However, I am predicting the streak comes to an end this year, despite the legendary, what has gone down so far for the Spurs in the past 2 decades, making the playoffs. They've gone 2 decades without missing the postseason. So that's a testament to the Spurs organization, Coach Pop, what they have built in San Antonio. But like I said, I have the streak coming to an end this year. And I don't know if I've had a chance to say it quite yet. I think I have, but I was wrong about those Pelicans who I chose to make that 8th spot. They played uninspired basketball, little to no defense. Zion and the whole minutes restriction thing really killed the tempo, the flow of the game, the flow of the offense, for the Pelican team, not knowing when he's going to be in, how long he's going to be playing for. Also, like I said, uninspired basketball, especially on that defensive end. So right now, I am predicting the Trailblazers to beat the Phoenix Suns, okay? I have the Suns making it to the play-in game, and then I have the Blazers beating the Phoenix Suns in the play-in game to go on to the postseason. But, Phoenix is on fire. They're going to have to beat the Mavericks tonight. So they're playing the Mavericks tonight. The Mavs are already locked up in that 7th seed. So maybe they go ahead and sit their guys, but maybe they go out there, play hard, try to get the Suns to lose, snap that streak, have them miss the postseason. So maybe that's the Mavericks' goal tonight. Maybe they're letting them slide by. They're going to sit Doncic and Porzingis maybe, and then the Suns can slide by. I don't know. It really depends on what the Mavericks do, what their game plan is, since they are already clinched in their position at that 7th seed. But the reason I'm leaning Blazers over the Suns is simply because of Damian Lillard, how he's playing, the hot streak he is on, and how healthy that Portland team is finally, despite having a couple of key players missing like Ariza and Rodney Hood. They have most of their guys healthy, which they haven't had all season. Dame is on such a hot streak. I'm taking Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers over Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns, despite the hot streak, how amazing Devin is playing. I do think he's going to continue the streak against the Mavericks, beat them again, and then go on to the seeding games. And another reason I'm favoring Portland is because the 9th seed has to win 2 games to move on to the postseason, in comparison to that 8th seed who only needs to win 1 game against the 9th seed. So 8th seed only needs 1 win, 9th seed needs 2 wins, so it's going to be hard for that 9th seed to make it. Even if Devin Booker is on fire, they haven't lost yet. I am predicting Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers to give the Phoenix Suns their first loss of the bubble. Okay, so you heard it here. I have the Blazers beating Booker and the Suns in that play-in game. You don't want to count out Booker. He's proven everyone wrong, so far, so why can't he do it again? I'm just having a little more faith in my guy Damian Lillard, who again, I'm going to be talking about in my final segment, so don't go anywhere, okay? I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I want to give you guys a little preview, give you guys a breakdown, should I say, of that Bubble MVP award, some of those candidates, and I want to hand out my All-NBA seeding game teams, okay? I'm going to go do those 2 things. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. All right, listen up, sports bettors. This is Casey here to tell you about my favorite sports book, and it has to be BetUS. Football, basketball, baseball, they are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. I only endorse one sports book, and that is BetUS.com. Why? It's because BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the business. You guys need a sports book with integrity, longevity, and you guys need to know that you're going to get paid. You need a sports book that offers everything like live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, all sorts of entertainment, whatever you guys are into, all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. You guys can call today at 1-800-MyBetUS. That's 1-800-MyBetUS. And they will walk you guys through getting started. It's a really quick and easy process. Nobody in the industry is going to give you guys a bigger bonus than BetUS. Join right now and mention GSMC, and you can get up to 150%. Again, up to 150% bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody can beat that in the business. Okay, I bet at BetUS. You guys should too. You guys can join today. Again, it's betus.com, or you guys can call 1-800-MyBetUS. Again, 1-800-MyBetUS. Mention GSMC to get 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. You guys can join today.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back, guys. Like I said before the break, let's go ahead and talk about a pretty cool thing that the NBA is doing, and that's giving out bubble MVP awards, or an MVP award, and making all bubble teams for these seeding games. So a great idea for the NBA. A league in the NBA, which is they're proving, in my opinion, to be one of the superior leagues, because in a season of change, they are proving that change, that they are perfectly capable of change and changing for the better, if not. Okay, so they just threw in these seeding games. They made a play-in tournament for the first time ever. In comparison to what the NHL did, and it's similar but different. But they're not afraid to change. They're changing for the better. Especially this season. So it's a great idea, for the league and for all the teams so far, especially because, a lot of the teams are going to be going home soon. Not all of them are going to be here for the whole 3 months here until the end, past September. Not everyone is going to be here that long. Only 2 teams, in fact, are going to be there that long. So more than, 20 teams, I think 22 teams went to the bubble, so that means 20 teams are going home before then. So these bubble awards and teams are giving, more incentives, and obviously the season's done, but you're rewarding these players for playing, at such a high risk that they did have a risk coming in. Obviously the NBA did nothing but great things, making them all feel safe and be safe, but, there was a risk to come play. Some of these teams weren't even going to make the postseason. You could argue there was no point for them even to come play, but they did it because they love to play. They love the game. They wanted the platform, to speak on all the social injustice going on in the country right now. Rightfully so. Props to everyone who has been doing that so far. Another thing about the NBA, they've been doing a fantastic job spreading awareness for what has been going on in the country. So props to the NBA for that as well. But this is a great idea, giving, you're rewarding all the players who won't necessarily be there for a long postseason run, because a lot of the players we've seen pop in the bubble aren't necessarily big names players on big teams. So yeah, like I said, there have been a lot of unlikely players playing great. To be simple, a lot of unlikely guys playing great. To name a few, TJ Warren, TJ Warren averaging 18, 20 points before the bubble, comes in and is averaging over 30 points, is the first player to drop 50 in the bubble, leads the Pacers to a 3-0 start, dropped 50, like I said, average over 30 points and 6 rebounds. No one really saw this coming, a breakout span of games for TJ Warren, who has been a very consistent player, in his 5, 6, 7 years in the league or 5 or 6 years so far in the league. But somewhat maybe a breakout streak of games for him. Is this a breakout streak for TJ Warren and those Pacers? If so, that trade the Phoenix Suns did, acquiring or sending him away simply for cash, it's making them look even worse. TJ Warren is playing great. Is this a breakout, a couple of games? I hope so, but who knows? Either way, he's been playing fantastic. Another guy stepping up big, Gary Trent Jr. on those Portland Trailblazers. You guys know I'm high on the Blazers right now. Not as high on as other people are, but I'm pretty high on those Blazers. I like that team and what they're doing a lot right now. Gary Trent Jr. has been a big part of that in the bubble, has been averaging 18 points. Hasn't been the most consistent, though. One game, I don't think he scored a point, but then, for the most point, he's been averaging close to 18 to 20 points a game. So he's been a surprise for Portland, really helping, their perimeter shooting. He's been knocking down threes, making plays for others. Really been a standout player, which no one saw coming. So Gary Trent Jr. is another one of those players. Michael Porter Jr. as well. He's been standing out for the Nuggets, making a lot of teams second guess and wish they took a chance on him sooner, like the Nuggets did with Porter Jr., like they did with Bol. So I like what the Nuggets are doing as far as drafting, but it's no question Michael is popping right now, proving everyone that he should have gone higher in the draft. He shouldn't have dropped like he did, and yeah, he's been balling. Okay, he's averaging 23 points, 9 rebounds. He dropped 37 points in a game. Went 12 for 16 against the Lakers. He didn't miss a single shot. Only didn't play too much, but didn't miss a single shot. He's averaging 23 points, 9 rebounds. He's a rookie. Props to him and what he's been doing. He's been playing very well in the bubble. Started a couple games while the Nuggets were a little short-handed. So props to him. He's playing very good. And then obviously Devin Booker. Okay, Devin Booker balling recently. Over 31 points in the bubble, 6 assists. He's had at least 35 points in 4 games, at least 30 points in almost all of their games. He's leading the Suns to their 7-0 record as of right now. Okay, like I said, their final game is tonight. But Booker playing fantastic. 35 points in 4 games. 7-0. Best team so far in the bubble, and he's been the best player on that best team. Man, that's a pretty good case for that MVP. But there haven't just been unlikely stars stepping up. There have been the regular stars or unlikely players stepping up, but there have been stars stepping up, playing just as well as they were before the stop of the regular season, if not better as well. Lillard and Giannis, two in particular, have been playing great. Lillard is averaging 37 points, 9 assists. He scored 45 points, 50 points, and 60 points in the bubble. 3 of the top performances so far that we have seen in the bubble, all coming from the same guy in Damian Lillard. He has willed the Blazers, from 9th, 10th spot up to the 8th spot, despite being over 3.5, 4 games behind. So they came back, despite the odds being against them. He's playing fantastic. Like I said, scored 45, then backed it up with a 50-point game, then backed that up with a 60-point game. So that's insane. He's joining elite company in Wilt Chamberlain with his 60 points in 3 games in a single season. Dame has been balling. Giannis as well. He's averaging 28 points, 28 points, 12 rebounds, leading the league in rebounds in the bubble at 12. He's playing fantastic. His little scuffle with the Wizards is a little weird. I don't know why he did that. He only got suspended one game though, so don't worry, Bucks fans. And he's been playing very well though. 27 points, 12 rebounds. The Bucks are going to go as far as Giannis can take them. We've been talking about that all year. But as far as the MVP front runners and who they are, I say the three front runners are TJ Warren, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard. Those are the three. Warren, I throw him in there just because of the hot start, how hot he was from the get-go, leading the Pacers to a 3-0 start. He dropped 50 points. He's averaging over 30 points, in comparison to 18 in the regular season. So he's playing fantastic in these regular season games, or these seeding games. A huge step up from what he was playing like in the regular season, but it hasn't been as consistent as those other two in Booker and Lillard. Lillard and Booker also, their teams have better records in the bubble than Warren does in the Pacers. So, Booker and Lillard are the two front runners, in my opinion, out of the three-man race. Lillard, like I said, averaging, 37 and 9, got the Blazers into the play-in game, has a 50 and a 60-point game. Devin Booker been surprising everybody with how consistent and the high level he's been playing at with the 7-0 record. Like I said, no one saw them contending for that 8th spot, which they are doing now. MVP. Okay, I gotta go. I was just thinking about it one more time before giving you guys my final decision, but I am going Devin Booker. I'm sticking with my gut. I'm going with Devin Booker. His team has been the best team so far in the bubble, in the Phoenix Suns. They're 7-0. He is the best player on that team, has 35 points in 4 of their games, has scored 30 in almost every single one of their games, hit a game winner over arguably the best team in the Clippers, 2 of the best defenders in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Proving everybody wrong. I gotta give it to Devin Booker and what he has been doing. No disrespect to Damian Lillard, but I don't think he's gonna lose that much sleep over bubble MVP. I think he has his eyes out more for getting to the finals, winning a championship. I'm not sure he really cares all that much about bubble MVP. I'm giving it to Devin Booker, the surprise of the league so far. Like I said, best player on the best team so far in the league. Devin Booker is my bubble MVP. I'm going to go ahead and do a poll on Twitter for that today as well. So go ahead and check out our Twitter page. Vote on that poll. We'll see how those results come in. We'll see if you guys agree with me. Hopefully so. But really quickly, let's go ahead and talk about the two teams for the bubble. First team and second team. They're also giving those accolades, those achievements out. So, first team for me, I gotta go Damian Lillard, Devin Booker. I'm putting Luka Doncic in there. He's been playing very good, despite not playing too well late in games, but he's been playing very good for the most part. He's averaging a triple-double in 30, 11, and 11. He scored like 36 points, 19 assists, and like 14 rebounds in a game. So that's an insane stat line right there. He's been balling out. So Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, TJ Warren, and Giannis Antetokounmpo are on my first team for the bubble. Let's go on to the second team. Okay, second team. I'm going James Harden, who's averaging 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists, almost 9 assists. So Harden, Michael Porter Jr., who I talked about earlier, Michael Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., who's been balling as well for the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm going with DeMar DeRozan for the second team. He's leading the bubble, leading all teams in fourth quarter points. So in clutch time, DeMar is scoring. He's leading the Spurs. He is the best player so far on the Spurs, getting them in playoff contention, despite being, so far down in the standings. So I'm putting DeRozan on there for his fourth quarter play so far. For my final guy, I'm putting Porzingis in there, okay? Before the regular season, or for the seeding games, in the regular season, he's averaging 19, close to 20 points in the bubble. He's averaging close to 30 points. He's had 30 points in more, or he's had 30 or more points in 4 of their games so far. Porzingis, we haven't really been talking about him. He's been playing very well, as has Luka. I'm putting Porzingis on my second team for the bubble so far. the teams, they aren't going by position for first and second team. They simply said the best 5 players. It doesn't matter what position they are, like the regular All-NBA awards. They simply did best 10 players. But the bubble has been great so far. I'm super glad they're giving players the recognition they deserve, because like I said, not all teams are going to be going that far in the postseason. So I'm glad the NBA is doing this. I'm glad they're changing for the better, proving themselves to be one of the best leagues, if not the best league in sports, with how they are handling this whole bubble and coronavirus situation. Thoroughly impressed so far. I want to say that one more time. But let's go ahead and take a short break. Okay, another short break. When I come back, let's go ahead and give you guys another preview of the first round of the postseason, both Western Conference and Eastern Conference. Okay, that's coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, good to have you guys back. Third segment of the day. Wow, show is flying by. Let's go ahead and I want to give you guys a first round preview for both the Western and that Eastern Conference. Like I've been talking about, the seeding games are wrapping up. The final games are tonight, and the play-in game to make the postseason for the Western Conference will be Saturday, and if it needs a second game, that will also be on Sunday. But the playoffs, the first round, is set to kick off and start next week on the 17th on Monday. So we're going to have the start of the postseason on Monday, the 17th. The semifinals, the second round will begin on the 31st. Conference finals will be September 15th. And then the finals, I believe, will start at the very end of September. So there's the timeline for you for the next month and a half of basketball. It's going to be some of the best basketball hopefully we've seen. Like I've said, the basketball so far has been fantastic. I've been thoroughly impressed with what we've seen so far, but we're getting the postseason next week. Super excited for it. But yeah, I want to give you guys a preview of both conferences. Because there really are, when I was looking at all of the different matchups and rivalries, I was really intrigued and surprised with what I saw, because I do think we're gonna get a lot of good matchups in this first round, which is usually not what you see in the NBA's first round. Usually it's a lot of 4 and done, at least in the upper seeds. But this year I think it's going to be a little different, but let's go ahead and start with the Eastern Conference. Let's start out east with that number 1 seed Bucks. They will be matching up against the 8th seed in the Orlando Magic. Okay, Magic against the Bucks. I think this is going to be a pretty quick series, to be honest with you. The Magic are not equipped for Milwaukee. That's because they're in, showing them being in that 8th spot. They're not equipped to play with Milwaukee. It's really the opposite of that in the Western Conference, the one against the 8th seed in the Lakers and the Blazers. This is kind of the opposite of that matchup, in which it should be really quick, not competitive, and it should be a 4-0 sweep. Bucks, wipe the floor off of the Magic in the first 3 quarters. Giannis sits the 4th quarter, rest for the semifinals. I see that coming. I could see Orlando, since it's kind of a home tournament for them, I could see them sneaking one game in there. Maybe Giannis sits or something. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't play well. I don't know. But maybe Orlando steals one. But right now, I'm thinking it's going to be a clean sweep. Milwaukee wipes the floor with the Orlando Magic. Let's move on and to the next matchup, the number 2 seed Raptors against the number 7 seed Brooklyn Nets. Having KD and Kyrie come back, this would have been a very interesting matchup. But without those two guys, I see it somewhat being similar to that first matchup I talked about in the Bucks and Magic. The Nets have been playing very well, so far, despite being so short-handed. They've won 3 in a row. They're playing very good, like I said. But Toronto is a very deep team. They are super deep. They proved it against the Lakers. We've seen it in the regular season how good they are playing after losing their guy in Kawhi Leonard. That's a testament to that team, that game plan Nick Nurse has. So Toronto is deep. Toronto is for real. I don't think Brooklyn can hang with Toronto. Maybe they can steal a game or so, just because they've been playing very, good up until this point. But I think it's a quick series. Maybe Brooklyn steals a game, but I think the Toronto gets it. Maybe in 5, could be 4. We'll see how much of a fight Brooklyn puts up. But I like Toronto in the first round. Kind of an easy duh right there, but let's go ahead and talk about the next one. Okay, so number 3 seed Celtics against the number 6 seed 76ers. Okay, this would have been one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting matchup in the first round. But Ben Simmons is injured. He's not in the bubble, so that really does give an advantage to the Celtics if they didn't already have one. The Celtics have kind of had the 76ers number in prior seasons when they've matched up. The Celtics clearly look like the better team, despite there being talent on both sides of the court. But big advantage for the Celtics with Ben Simmons not being there. But Boston is super deep. They have 3 20-plus point scorers on their roster. And because Ben is gone, I think Celtics win in 5, maybe 6 games. Maybe Embiid can win 2, but I really doubt that. I think they win in 5 games. Embiid does have a chance to prove kind of his worth to this team, prove how good he really is, prove he is the number 1 guy on the 76er team. He has a chance to do that by making it interesting against the Celtics. But that being said, I don't necessarily see that. I like Boston in the matchups. Boston usually has the Sixers card when they play. I think Boston wins in 5, maybe 6. We'll see how good Embiid can play against Boston. His arch rival Al Horford is on his team now, so he doesn't have to, play against him. Al Horford seems like the Embiid antidote, Embiid's secret formula to beat him. It seems like Al Horford just clearly looks like the better player whenever they match up, or the smarter player, but he's on the same team now. They're on the same team. We'll see if they can rise against that deep team in Boston, but I have them in 5, maybe 6 games. We'll see if the Sixers can make it interesting. All right, next up in the last matchup in that Eastern Conference. Okay, last matchup in the Eastern Conference, and maybe just the best, it might just be the best matchup in the Eastern Conference that we see, especially because Simmons is hurt. I really thought, like I said, the Celtics and Sixers would have been the very best, possibly in the entire postseason for that first round. But with Embiid going down, clearly there's an advantage for the Celtics. But let's move on. Like I said, Heat against the Pacers. Number 4 seed Heat against number 5 seed Pacers. This is one of the best matchups in the first round in that Eastern Conference. 2 very similar teams, 2 very, very good teams, okay? Good teams definitely in Indiana and Miami, both led by kind of one star like all-star player, and then a whole lot of other good tough players to go along with it. So the Heat and the Pacers both very similar. I think it's going to be a tough, gritty grind series. We get the drama of the whole Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren beef. We get them beefing. Maybe we'll get a little scrap from them too. It's going to be an interesting series. This, I think, is going to be the longest series of the first round. I think it goes 6, maybe even 7 games. I think it's a very competitive series. We'll see if Miami comes out there and just wipes the floor with them, how competitive they are. But, Indiana has proved in the last couple of years they're a team you don't want to mess with or underestimate. So I could very well see this matchup, this series going 6 or 7 games, but I am giving the advantage to the Heat and Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra. I'm giving the nod to them, Bam Adebayo. I'm leaning the Heat's way in 6 or 7 games. I think the Heat get the better of the Pacers. I think it's a very close and tough matchup. Indy proves that they're not a team to be reckoned or a team to mess around with. But I think the Heat get the best of the Pacers in 6 or 7. You don't want to miss that. They might be kind of boring looking at the Heat versus the Pacers. But no, that's going to be a very intriguing, intense matchup. Two very somewhat even teams. Oladipo's back playing pretty good basketball. He's playing healthy. Warren, we see him arguably being the MVP of the bubble, so they're playing very good. Pacers are Heat. We know what Jimmy Butler, the intensity, the grit grind and focus they bring to the court in Miami. So we'll see what that matchup looks like. I have high hopes for that series, but again, I am leaning in Miami's favor. I have Miami winning in 6, maybe 7 games. All right, let's go out east. Okay, let's head to that what am I thinking? It's been a long day, guys. Let's go out west. Okay, let's go somewhere I have never been before, quite actually. I've never been to the Western Conference, or the west side of the United States. Fun fact for you guys. But let's go out west, a place I would like to go potentially. Let's start with that number 1 seed Lakers against the number 8 seed Trailblazers. So Lakers, obviously number one seed in the Western Conference, have been playing very well all season. A little bit of struggle so far in the seeding games, but again, the win against the Nuggets, a pretty good win for that team. Confidence booster for a guy like Kyle Kuzma for the Lakers. So the Lakers are looking good. We know how good the Blazers are looking as well. So the Lakers, they can't guard the perimeter. Okay, that's their problem. Lakers cannot guard the perimeter. The Blazers cannot guard LeBron. They are not equipped to guard LeBron. So Lakers can't guard the perimeter. Blazers can't guard LeBron. Dame is going to have to continue his hot streak. Really exploit the mismatch on that perimeter. LeBron's going to have to do the exact same thing, exploit the mismatch of the Trailblazers not having a defender to guard him or really stop him in any way. So LeBron needs to exploit that mismatch. Dame and CJ, Gary Trent Jr. need to exploit the mismatch on the perimeter. And the Lakers need Kyle Kuzma to be their number 3 guy. Even if it's just 15, 16, 17 points a game. You don't need 25 points every night. But they need him to be a third stepping up guy on that roster, guy they can count on. So if that happens, I got the Lakers winning in 5, maybe 6. Maybe it goes 6 games, but I'm really thinking it's going to go 5, maybe 6. Like I said, we'll see how much Dame in the Trailblazers can exploit that mismatch on the perimeter. But I have more faith in LeBron and the mismatch there. So I have the Lakers beating the Trailblazers in 5, maybe 6 games. I'm going Lakers. Clippers, Mavericks are the next matchup. Number 2 seed against the number 7 seed in the Mavericks. Luka and Porzingis, both of those players, they have been playing very well in the bubble. Okay, not too good in close games in crunch time. Okay, kind of losing a couple of games they should have won. But either way, they've been playing very good. I had them both on my bubble teams. And I do think they will win a game, maybe 2 games against the Clippers, but I don't see it getting past that. Whole lot of veterans on that Clipper team in Kawhi, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Paul George, led by Doc Rivers. So a lot of veterans on that team. I also like the Clippers defense. Not a whole lot to talk about for the Mavericks defense. So I like the Clippers defense. Mavericks are not the best in late game situations. I think the Mavs can make it interesting. I do think they can win a game or so, but I don't think they can upset the Clippers. I got the Clippers winning in 5, maybe 6, but I got the Clippers. Let's go ahead and speed this up for my final segment. But next up, number 3 seed Nuggets against the number 6 seed in Utah Jazz. I think it's a very tough and close series, similar to that Indiana Pacers Miami Heat matchup. I think these two teams are very similar. They're both very young. They got young stars. The Jazz are missing their best 3-point shooter in Bob Donovich. So that's an issue for that team. I really like Donovan Mitchell. Is he okay with Rudy Gobert? But I really like Donovan Mitchell. He's my favorite player in that whole series, and I really like Jokic a lot, but I really like Donovan Mitchell. But I think Jokic and the Nuggets get the win over the Jazz. Denver is very good. We saw it against the Lakers in one of the seeding games. They sat their starters in the fourth quarter, and the Lakers had to win off a buzzer-beating 3-pointer. So Denver's pretty deep. Don't underestimate that team. I have Denver winning in 6. Maybe 7, but I have Denver winning in 6 over the Jazz. Last series, I want to talk about the number 4 seed Rockets against the number 5 seed Thunder. Man, is that a great storyline or what? We got the Rockets against the Thunder. Chris Paul against the team that traded him away. Russell Westbrook, the franchise guy in Oklahoma City, they recently traded him away. So those two teams, James Harden, the Oklahoma City Thunder, traded him away as well. So these two teams have history. Those players all have history. So it's a great storyline. I do think the Thunder make it very interesting. They have interesting matchups for the Houston Rockets, but I like Russ and Harden over Oklahoma City Thunder. I like the veteran experience in the two MVPs. Don't count out Oklahoma City Thunder. Don't count out that team, but I am going with the Rockets to win in 5. Probably 6, though. I'm going to say 6. I'm taking the Rockets in 6 games. I'm trusting the two MVPs, but don't count out that gritty, tough team in Oklahoma City. Okay, so that's my preview of the first round, both East and Western Conference. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, let's go ahead and talk about Damian Lillard. Okay, Damian Lillard, the guy in Portland, not a guy everybody talks about. But yes, that first round, tons of good matchups. It should be very interesting, and it all starts on Monday, the 17th. Okay, the 17th, these first round are kicking off. With that being said, I'm going to go and take a quick break. Coming back for my final segment. Please don't go anywhere, guys.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, guys, it's fine. It's time. It's time for my final segment of my final podcast of the week. Okay, my last segment of the last podcast. Let's go ahead and talk about Damian Lillard. Okay, because in my opinion, he really is making his case to be the second best. For the second best point guard in the entire league. He's really making a case to be that guy. Excuse me, I have a little burp there. But he's been doing it for a while now. Excuse me. He's been doing it for years. But more recently, he's really been putting his team on his back, carrying the Trailblazers to that number 8 seed. Okay, like I said earlier, he's dropped 45 points, 50 points, 60 points in the bubble. The only player to do that, he joins Wilt Chamberlain as one of the only 2 players to ever score 60 plus points in 3 games in a single season. Okay, wrap your head around that. He has scored, him and Wilt Chamberlain. Damian Lillard and Wilt have the only players to score 60 3 times in a single season. So that's legendary when you get your name in the same, length, in the same record books next to a guy like Wilt Chamberlain. Okay, a guy known for having insane stat lines. So when your name is up next to that guy's, how great that person is, what a tear that person is on. In the bubble, Damian is averaging 37 points and 9 assists, leading the league in points, not assists. Luka's leading it in assists with 11. But he's right there behind him with 9, and he's leading the league with 37 points in the bubble so far. So he's been balling, like I said, 50 and 60 points in games. He's averaging 29 points, 7 assists in the regular season. So he's been balling. He's proving it to us again. We've seen him, very recently, we've seen him send Russell Westbrook home in the first round of the postseason, despite arguably having the inferior team. Okay, so last year he sends home Paul George, Russell Westbrook. They go home in the first round because it's Dame time. He sends them home off a 10 feet behind the three-pointer. He jacks it up over Paul George, nails it, sends them home at the buzzer. Paul George still a little salty for that, I think. We saw with the beef that they have going on, or had going on. I think Paul not quite over that yet, but Damian proving he's a top player in this league. Like I say, he sent home one of the other top point guards in Russell Westbrook, and outplaying him as well, thus, in my opinion, putting him over him in today's NBA as far as rankings go. I just saw him beat the Houston Rockets in the bubble in a very close game. So that was a close game, and then Dame gets the best of Westbrook and Harden again. And then as far as other people in contention, you could go Kyrie Irving, but he's so injury prone. We haven't really seen him too much over the last couple of years, so I'm not putting him at number 2. I'm not putting him over Westbrook because I saw him send him home in the first round recently, so I can't put him, I can't put Westbrook over Dame either. So I think I'm putting Damian Lillard at that number 2 spot for point guards in the league today. I don't feel comfortable putting him over the great Steph Curry quite yet. I know, some people are not as high on him as I am. I think he's the best shooter to ever play. I think he's the best point guard in the league today. He's got 2 MVPs. He's got 3 championships. A great player. He's the leader of that Warriors franchise, and especially because of what I saw in that Western Conference final last year. It was essentially coming down to Dame and CJ, those 2 players against Steph and Clay. Okay, there was no KD. It was Steph and Clay versus Damian and CJ. Yes, they had Draymond backing them up and other players, but they had injuries all over their roster. The Portland Trail Blazers had a perfect opportunity to knock off the champs in Golden State, but Steph then goes on to average 36 points, 7-8 rebounds, 7-8, 9 assists, like 43% from the 3, almost 50% from the floor. So Steph goes off and does that. The Blazers sweep. The Blazers get swept by the Warriors, and Steph Curry, he proves he is the superior point guard. So I can't put Dame at that number 1 spot over Steph, especially because of that conference final last year and what I saw between those 2. But with his consistent play over all of the many years and his hot streak recently, it's tough not to put him at that number 2 spot in this entire league. Okay, he's really making a spot for it. And another underrated factor, the Portland Trail Blazers have made the postseason every year besides once. Portland and Damian Lillard have been in the postseason. Portland has been in the postseason every year besides once since drafting Damian Lillard. So that's a testament to his consistent play, his high-level play, and his greatness. So he's making a case to be the second best. I can't put him at number 1, but I'm getting pretty comfortable at putting him at number 2. Let me know what you guys think. I don't think this is that big or that bold of a statement with how he's been playing. He's been proving everyone wrong up until this point. I think he continues to do so. So yeah, in my opinion, Dame is at that number 2 spot right now in point guards for the NBA today. And that is going to do it for the GSMC basketball podcast this week. This is my final podcast for the week. Like I said, tonight are the final seeding games. We will find out who will be matching up in the play-in game, play-in tournaments this weekend. And then on Monday, the 17th, we get the kickoff, the official kickoff of the NBA's postseason. I gave you guys a preview of that so you know how intense, how great that first round really should be. So I'm looking forward to all of it. Thank you guys as well for the continued support. Whatever platform you guys are listening on, I want to urge you to leave a comment, leave a review, and then go check us out on Twitter and Facebook, our social media pages. Give us a follow. We really support we really appreciate any support you guys are giving to us. So thank you again. This is my final podcast of the week. Go check out some great basketball this weekend. I'm going to be right back here on Monday, giving you guys, getting you guys ready for the start of the postseason. I'll see you guys on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.